Welcome to another episode of Successfully Unsuccessful podcast. I'm your host, Josh Dietrich, and today, physically here in the house, St. Michael, Minnesota, is my boy, Rashad Kennedy. Mr. Rashad, how are you today?
Yes, sir. Doing phenomenal. Thanks for having me, Josh.
It's so good.
Yes, sir.
You are comfortable. You look like you're just in a spot
yes, sir.
to chill. Well, we got a chance to connect, and what's cool about every guest, but specifically you, man, is in so many ways we were connected before we knew we were connected. Mm-hmm. And I love when that happens. And I love when it happens in really crazy ways. But particularly today, you're actually a client of mine, and we won't even, no shameless plugs quite yet, a client of mine, another fellow 5 foot something and a halfer.
Hey, I'm about 5'7".
See?
Yeah, on a good day. Yes,
Can you get 5'7"?
I need all 5'7", yes.
All right. Well, I'm not quite 5'7". I'm 5'6", so I'll let you take that one. Another, well, I guess I'm not a former wrestler, but the wrestling blood is practically in me. And so a former All-American wrestler,
yes, sir.
Right?
Yes,
But let's just say brother in Christ too. So to top it all off, most important.
Amen.
Well, I wanted to have you on the show for a few reasons. One particularly, dude, is just I've heard about this guy named Rashad, and he runs this little thing called Kennedy Property Development. And I've heard your name a few times because I think we've been doing projects together for a couple years, right?
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah.
As a client of a hard money lending business, you have been the superstar, the example of all of our clients on how to borrow money well and use it well, stewarding it well, and to create a pretty nice return, but then repeat it, but then not just repeat it, but scale it. And so it's been really crazy to hear about this guy, and then all of a sudden, I feel like I got to talk to him. And so welcome to the show. Why don't you just give me a quick lowdown? Who are you? What do you do? Tell us about your little business quick, and where are you from?
Yes, sir. Okay, where do I start? Rashad Kennedy, 31 years old, about to be 32 in November, live in St. Paul. Me and my girlfriend, our dog. As far as what I do, we're in real estate, construction. As far as who I am, I would definitely say my identity is in God. In my faith, that's my identity. You take away anything else, and nothing really matters but God. So I definitely can't speak on who I am without talking about God. My days, I work out. I was telling you, I coach. That's really about it. Really big on self-improvement. Like, I want to be better today than I was yesterday, the next year. That pretty much sums it up. Like, I'm just trying to, be the best version of me, and it's definitely a process every day and a trial. Some days are better than the next.
Yeah, man.
Well,
especially when you're in the transformation business, and when you recognize your business is our hearts on an ongoing basis, right? To be restored back to God is pretty powerful, and I think there's something about taking something not so pretty and improving it and making it better. Like, you're in the improvement business, but you also just talked about one of your passions. And so maybe that's what fuels your world so much in real estate, huh?
Yeah. Real estate is spiritual. Construction is spiritual.
Dude.
You take something that's from nothing and you put what you put into it, the people, the vision, like, you get to the other end of that, you're like, wow. And that's why we like the type of projects we like. We like the ones we look at, like, how are we gonna do that? How are we gonna put that together? It's a lot of like I see a lot of flippers. What they do is carpet, paint. Right. That stuff doesn't excite me.
Right.
I want to come in. I want to. What? That's the same house,
dude. So I gotta imagine, man, what it would have been like to be your parent. Like, how did this manifest itself as a kid? So I'm an ADHD, and part of like what I do for work is probably what I did as a kid. I like to break stuff to see how it works and then try to repair it, but make it cooler and better. Yeah. Right. And so that's my world in business, I feel like. But as a kid, were you guilty of things like that?
Yeah. As a kid, man, time flies. I'm like, people talk about like high school and all that stuff. Like, I don't really remember. Yeah. It goes so fast, Poof. I mean, as a kid, I definitely hung out with the kids in my neighborhood a lot. You know what I mean? Like, was never really inside, very active, playing sports, ding dong ditch, tackle football, you name it.
Whatever.
A lot of energy, friends with a lot of energy. I think I'll sum it up like that.
Yeah, man. Well, it was more just because I was curious to find some parallel as a kid of things where you were using your hands or trying to make something better, or like I took my mom reminded me that I would take apart a flashlight and then I couldn't put it back together, but I was trying to see how it worked, and then I would take the components and find a way to I could make a fan and a flashlight. I was like, oh, this is pretty sweet, and I would put that inside like a toilet paper roll box. Yeah. And so I had a fan on one end and a flashlight on the other. I'm like, I don't know.
I think, I could think of one time, but I didn't really do stuff like that, except for one time I tried to create a tornado in my bedroom. I had a fan and ice, and I tried to turn the fan on because I found out it was a combination hot and cold. My mom walked in the room what the heck's going on? I'm like, I don't know.
That's awesome.
The only time I could
Science project.
Put something together. Other than
that's
that,
good.
Yeah,
well, so 2024, pretty good year. Thinking back the last 12 months or 2023, 2024, what kind of scale are you operating at right now? Just help me picture how many times are you walking into a house and how many houses are you seeing a day, and then how many are you buying and then selling? What does that look like in a year?
Great question. I guess I'll just think about right now we probably got 5 on the market, probably another 10 that we're actively working on, another 5 or so that we're working on, ready to close on. I just broke ground on my biggest deal to date, which is an acre of land. It was high density multifamily. It was limited business use. Rezoned it to high density multifamily. Gonna be building 16 townhouses. So we're excited about that. So if I had to look at the deals, I'd have to go back and count. I'm not sure what.
How many deals did you sell last year that were flips?
I'd probably say 15.
15 last year.
15
and
last year.
This year on pace to do how many flips that you've closed?
Yeah, that's good. I'd probably say maybe 20, more than that.
More than 20 flips?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I'd have to look.
So you're doing almost 2 a month. Yeah.
Yeah, something
getting
like
there.
That.
Yeah. And I think the once upon a time days, the early days for me, I had one guy that I got started as a lender, which is crazy small world that we have another thing in common, right? But he was doing 2 deals a year, right? And then doing some other transactions. But are you a real estate agent as well?
So I was going to say I have my license.
Yeah.
I had it, but I lapsed on my continuing education, which is done now. But I'm actually signed up to get my broker's license. The month of November, I'm going to take the 4-day class to get my hours under my belt and just open up my own brokerage.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, at some point, right, the transaction and running things through.
Yeah.
But what kind of scale is that, right? So you talk about having that many projects always in queue. You have the front end, the current, and then the ones that you're trying to sell and move on. But what does your day look like? Because to have that many projects going on in a number of different areas, are you in the operations? Are you touching any equipment?
Yeah.
What role are you mainly playing at this point doing that many deals?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I got to speak on my team, because we're not doing any of this without the team. It's a small team, but it's a team that's effective, and we can make some things happen. So it's Kayla. She wears a lot of hats. She's my assistant. She's a designer. She's property management, you name it. She wears a lot of hats just like me. And then there's Dale, site soup, project manager. He wears a lot of hats. He has a lot of titles. He's in the field majority of the day. And then Peter, he's on it's something else that we're trying to do more, so retail stuff, project manager. And then we have our four-time carpenters, and then we have about 5 other guys that do roofing, siding, demo, general labor, and they do a lot of stuff too. So as far as the day-to-day, I'd say half of the day I'm coordinating stuff, schedules, looking at the next deal, it's coordinating operations management, and then the other half I'm in the field. So, I kind of like to split it up.
How much of that feels like it's the house is burning down, that there's fires you're putting out, kind of one from the other?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Is that, that half of that day, does it feel like that? Is the other half a little more controlled?
Construction to its nature is just
fire.
There's a lot of moving parts. Yeah. Things could go wrong. They will, you know what I mean? Water heaters going out, you name it. So a lot of stuff, and that's why Dale, he plays a big role. Something pops up, hey Dale, where you at? You over there? Okay, we gotta go check that out. You know what I mean? And I might be the first to take that call, but I'm calling Dale or something like that. I'm calling Kayla, or if one of the carpenters are on site, I'm calling them. So
and then in streamlining, being able to delegate, because to go from yourself to a team, it takes just this thoughtful transition of what are the things that are coming in that are repeat all the time, right? So at what point did you give up the property management or some of the stuff to Kayla you mentioned, like, well, those things you did at one point, right? So I'm always, you talk about process improvement or becoming that version. And it's like, for me, I had to really get diligent about the things I work on in the day. And like to still look at new deals means you have to have people hunting. And then if you want to get those done, you have to make sure you're creating time to analyze those deals. But if you're just running and gunning all the time, right, working on the fire, you never get to stop and work on the future business. So curious, talk to us about like that evolution of being able to hire your first key teammate.
Yeah, exactly. So Kayla, my girlfriend, she's been really with me from, beginning. She had her full-time job, but she, really from the beginning, when I first did my first house, I'm looking at stuff. I don't know what color to pick. Oh, you should do this one. Okay. You know what I mean? So definitely leaning. She was
natural and intuitive, and that made
exactly.
sense.
Hairdresser colors, that comes really natural to her. I'm dang near colorblind. The test that you took when you're elementary, you got to figure out the number. I never passed those. You know what I mean? So I think that means you're colorblind.
So you literally now just like, are you saying your aesthetics of your flips have improved?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And it's all credit to her.
What happened to this room? It's red and gray. Are you sure it's red and gray?
So definitely leaning on her a lot for that. I mean, you name it. If it's picked out, if there's aesthetic appeal to it, she picked it out. So to her, she's been with me from the beginning since I really started to my first house. Dale, hired him really, I think, what are we in? It's been over 3 years now. 3 years. And that was really like a leap of faith. At that point, I was probably doing one at a time. After I hired him, I mean, now we got what I just mentioned, really after hiring him, that really helped me to buy my time back and not have to be so involved. Like even the aspect of being to inspections, I don't even go to inspections no more.
So that was your first like real hire?
Well, I had always had carpenters. I did always have carpenters. So like before Dale, I had my guy Carlos, who's still with me to this day.
Which are different, right? Because it's transactional, right? This is your first guy you're kind of investing in.
Exactly.
Okay, so that is a key hire, and I love that. So you mentioned buy your time back. I'm just all about this. Like for me, I was telling you before, when I would get to a point, I was launching my own products, and I got to a point, I'm like, this is the meat and potatoes of the business, but the formula is there. I need to be doing other things. I need to expand. And so it was like, this leap of faith to write this check and this investment. It was my brother, fortunately. I trusted the guy. I'm sure you trusted Dale too.
Oh, yeah, trust is huge, yeah.
So, but what kind of like, how were you able to justify and what were your circumstances like? Was it a no-brainer? Or was it a no-brainer on paper, but you were more reluctant? What part did you hire? Too late or too early?
That's a great question. And to be honest, I don't even know how to answer because on paper, it's probably too early. You know what I mean?
But that's it.
Yeah.
That's the right way to do it. On paper, it sucks the first. It's on paper, it's like, I don't know if the math makes sense yet, right? But you knew the momentum was there.
Yeah. And looking back, it was like, well, that was the perfect timing.
Bingo. How many months in advance do you feel like, oh, I see why we needed him? Did it take you 6 months?
I'd probably say the second month because like as we were doing that project and I was there pretty much, this was like my first like big project. It was a church and we turned it to apartments, so I think this had a budget of $700,000-800,000. So that was my biggest biggest project. Really first like working with architects, working with engineers, working with civil engineers, structural engineers, really kind of like exposing myself to all that, opposed to like you doing the kitchen.
Right.
You might need a drafts person. You don't need an architect to sign off on it.
Right.
So I say that to say because about 2 months in, I got another deal that I think about it for $350. The budget was like 1.2 or something like that. And so like 2 months after I started working on that project, then I kind of had to take my energy from over there and really start focusing on over here. And Dale was really kind of holding the fort down right there, you know what I mean? Just from the day-to-day stuff.
Seeing it all happen.
Yeah. So right after that, I was like, man, you know what? If Dale wasn't there on site right now, I don't know if I would be able to do both of these right now, especially as I was learning and figuring things out.
That's the best, man.
So I say honestly right away, I'm like, oh yeah, I can see this makes sense.
So then when you got that trust that he's the guy, he's capable, right? It actually probably fueled your fire to go hard.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, the house isn't going to burn down. Like this thing is stable. And it's such a good feeling. And I think sometimes too, so many guys are just trying to get to that part where they can leave, they can break free. And some people are like, when is it time to go out on my own? And I think whether you're hiring your first guy or going out on your own to do this, it's about the momentum, right, that you're feeling. Because it may not look good on paper. And it's like, well, you're right, but that's where the investment comes in. Yeah. Right? So I'm curious for you, like, sounds like, and I'm just discovering this now, real estate hasn't always been in your blood. Maybe some other things, but flipping itself, how long have you been flipping?
Yeah, so first one, probably like 2016. 2016, 2017,
Okay.
right around there. What are we in, 2024? What's that? 17,
Okay, so 8 years,
Yeah,
7, 8
yeah.
years ago. Okay.
Yeah.
And then before that, you said the first thing you did in real estate was actually a hard money loan.
Yeah.
And when was that?
So that was my senior year of college.
Okay.
So what was that, 2015, 2016? Really right before my first deal.
Oh, wow.
Or first one that I
Okay,
was
so that kind of exposed you to it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that exposed me to it, made some money on it. I'm like, okay, this real estate, there's something to this for sure. So
Okay, so then let's walk through that because I think this is what kind of pulls into some of the secret sauce of what we've been able to help you with too, is like thinking about the path of finding the deal, analyzing the deal, figuring out the capital, the structure, feeling confident enough in your abilities to improve and sell, and timing the market, all these things where most people lose money, right? How many deals are you doing in the beginning? 1 or 2?
Just 3? One at a time as I'm kind of figuring
One
it
at
out.
a time?
Yeah, definitely.
Never going into number 2 until you sell one?
Yeah, that's pretty much how I went. I think I did a few like that. I think really 16, I did one each year.
Gotcha.
And then that's 2020, and I kept those. So maybe it was either 3 or 4.
You kept those?
I kept those. They were duplexes.
You still have them?
I actually just sold them, and I got one more that I'm selling.
Okay.
So I actually
Freeing up
kept
some
those.
cash. Yeah.
So my goal was, I was working at a group home. I told you before we start recording or whatever. I think I was making like $2,500 a month, $3,000 a month, maybe something like that. So then after I had those 4 duplexes, I was making at least that, if not a little bit more. And that's when I quit my job.
Right.
When I had that little nest egg, okay, I'm making at least what I'm making here. I don't need this job anymore. And I quit that. And that was in 2020.
Yeah, that's brilliant. So then you had some capital. You're able to kind of like, let's go at this a little harder.
Yeah.
So that first year in 2020, you went hard. How many did you do?
Well, in 2020, actually, I got my license right before I quit my job, my GC license.
Okay, so you kind of knew you were going there heavy.
Yeah, I knew I was going there. And even those few that I was doing with the city, I was going there and pulling the permit as the homeowner. You could do that, but when you're signing it as the homeowner, you also got to sign that you're not doing it for the purpose of reselling. So, and I was keeping it, but I also knew I was going to probably sell one day. You know what I mean?
At some point.
And then I just got to the point where and they were asking me questions. So I got to the point where it was like, you know what, I should get my GC license. So I got my GC license. And that year, maybe I did 2 or 3 deals. I was doing kitchens, bathrooms, basements for other people.
Okay.
And really getting more capital that way and getting it faster.
Gotcha.
As I was still kind of doing a couple deals.
Yeah, you're getting paid capital. You're filling your own coffers, and then you're able to kind of take the profits and reinvest them into something else.
Yeah. So I did more. I probably did 15 projects for people, full basements, kitchens, bathrooms. Yeah.
Okay, so you started to have that vision for what this would be.
Yeah.
And through that, I'm sure too you were facing lots of different, as your flips, your temperature from flips was growing. When did that go from, I have more opportunities to make money for myself than to do deep projects for other clients, dance around their schedule.
Yeah.
How did you make that decision, and what did that look like?
Yeah, so I honestly, I'd say when I got that church that turned into apartments, I'd say that was it. And then that's right when I hired Dale too. And then that's when I was kind of like figuring out a little bit, at this point I know what I don't know, and I know there's so much more to learn. You know what I mean? So I would say that's kind of when it was starting to click, right around there.
So it's like, okay, I have all these rooms now that I can reno and turn these into apartments.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of work here. Now, the faster I move at this, the faster I can turn these units into cash.
Yeah.
You turned them into apartments for rental or for sale?
For rentals. Yep. And that's sold now.
How many units?
It was 6.
Really?
Yep, it's 6.
A church that turned into 6?
Well, you know what? I come to find out that the owner was just calling a church for tax breaks or something like that.
No.
Yeah, it wasn't really a church.
Well, how did your Jesus is my boss hat work with him?
Man, it was tingling in there. It was like, nah, just kidding. No, I didn't even talk to it was an agent that it was on the market, but that's what I kind of found out just after doing some due diligence and stuff and talking to the agent and whatnot.
Right. That's incredible. Okay, so you're kind of like, all right, it's go time to run this up a notch. But when it meant to, did you ever have in the growing pains, because you have more deals sometimes in capital and more capital than you have deals. As a flipper is doing one at a time, it's usually because I only have so much capital, right? And I have to reserve some of it for the construction. And so at some point, 2020, 21, 22 now, Are you like, I'm scaling my business and are you using your own capital, but you're maybe using a bank, but just doing a few at a time? I'm just trying to sequentially go through the unlock season.
No, that's good. That's a great question. So I would say at that point, I was using a lender, and I still use them to this day. Got a handful of deals with them right now where you have to pay the monthly interest monthly. Okay.
Yep.
And I know you say you don't want to do no shameless plugs, but if we're talking about the story, we got to plug you guys in. And I'd say I would get to a point where it's like, okay, this monthly interest, I shouldn't pick up any more deals because it's, I got to have cash flow. I got to make sure that I don't have to wait for a draw before I can pay my guys. You know what I mean? I want to be able to. So I'd get to a point where it's like, okay, I'm not going to buy anymore. I'm going to kind of wait out because cash flow and the interest. Met you guys, and you guys do something differently where you don't have to pay monthly interest if you want to set it up like that.
Right.
So that is a game changer when you want to be able to do more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you don't got to pay it off into the back end. So, at the same time, kind of like when I met Dale, hired Dale, I've known Dale since I was this tall. He is my brother, blood couldn't make us closer. But I say that to say it's kind of similar. When I hired Dale, that's when I kind of noticed, okay, this makes sense. Like I said, the first 2 months, I met you guys, introduced to the loan where I don't have to pay it to the end. It was like, okay, I could work with this. I could start doing more, So I would say that's kind of how the sequence progressed.
So let's jam on that a little bit. Yep. So the lender, there's definitely lenders that do hard money lending.
Yep.
And you're like, okay, I'm servicing debt, but you also, in many cases, lenders, require some level of cash down, right? A majority of them are going to be at least 10, 15, most likely 20 to 25, depending on, right? Yep. And so I think monthly payments is one thing, but then cash down is also a barrier, right? Because if you're going to do construction, a lot of times that's most of your cash, if you have any in the bank, that's going to have to go there because you're like, well, that's going to be hard to figure out how to secure this deal without fixing it up. So that's a problem. But then also I have another project and my money's tied up. I want to do a second deal or a third deal, right? So maybe tell us who you're using. Who's your preferred lender of choice at this point, and why does it work to scale besides the monthly interest?
Absolutely. So the unique thing about cashability, as you know, is the loan to value. I think you guys might even do 80% loan to value to where. I won't go too deep into the equation, but it's pretty simple. It's straightforward. You get it appraised based off the scope of work. So let's use $100,000, for example, is what it's going to be worth once it's done. Okay, if you got an 80% loan to value, that's $80,000. So let's say, it's going to take $20,000 to remodel. Okay, and you want to get it for $60,000. So you got your $60,000 for your purchase price. You got your $20,000 for your rehab. Well, that's $80,000. Cashability over here is going to land $80,000. Well, you do the math. That's all the money that you need.
There you go.
So that's
it brings the cash to the equation much different. And I think one thing you pointed out there too, it's the future value, the after repair value, right? Yeah. And so like the deal is clearly find the best deal you can. Yeah. Find the way to take out construction costs, which in your case, you've integrated construction, right? So now instead of having to be hiring several GCs, you had developed a trade skill, right? Yeah. So you're finding the property. We haven't talked about that yet, but maximizing the repair. But your cash now allows you to maybe do, zero down and or less than nothing, percent down. To be able to work on 2 or 3 or 4, unlocking other purchase opportunities, right? So in the past, you mentioned kind of one at a time. Yep. What's kind of the most you've had going at one time?
Shoot, probably right now, we got at least 10 active right now. And then, as I mentioned, I just closed on a piece of land where I'm going to build 16 townhouses. I'm going to do the first phase first, though, which is going to be 8.
Right.
And out of those 10 that I'm naming, one's an 11-unit apartment building.
Unreal.
So, it's more than 10 kitchens. It's, probably 30 because I got a 6-unit too that I'm doing in Red Wing.
Right. So to bring 20% down or 15% down on all the capital of 10 deals, all of your profits for the year are strapped into properties, right? And so what's amazing is what's been working well is being able to empower guys like yourself to be able to do more deals. Now, right, there's a cost of interest, right? There's a cost of the money.
Absolutely. But
at the end of the day, it's time as money equation, the same as this is. It's you're able to then scale 2 or 3 times parallel. Exactly. And I'll say this, the discretion and caveat is the cashability model that I love is deal and relationship-based lending, right? So a guy like you doesn't just get access to do 10 deals at one time. It's because of a track record and growth and some bumps and some learnings, right?
Yeah,
but it's been, what, a couple years have we been doing?
Yeah, really full time, I'd say since 2020.
But with cashability.
Oh, yeah, cashability, 2 years, 2 years.
Unreal. And so I'm hearing about this guy Rashad from a distance, and turns out he's out there with making things happen. So what is your long-term vision now as you kind of paint out the next 5 years with this skill set and thinking about scaling up? What does that mean to you? Is it more in the same niche? Or are you leveling up the different property types? Are you doing different type of asset unit values?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, I definitely believe in like a vision and like, trying to look down the road, and I also believe that there's a verse in the Bible, God, where somebody says, we're going to do such and such and such, and God says, or I don't know who says it, but it says, God willing, you know what I mean? I should know the verse, but I don't know it, but I like it. So I kind of do try to look at that too and try to balance it out, because I could have all these plans. God might have something totally different for me, you know what I mean? So I truly do like to look at it with kind of both sides of the coin, but I would say I would really sum it up like, I just want to do more. I want to have more impact. I want to do more complicated jobs, ones that require more project management, more skill set. Like I just want to do more challenging deals. You know what I mean? From that the one that I mentioned, there was a church, turned into, that was challenging. And I got the 6-unit townhouse development. I'm sure that's going to come with those challenges. I want to just keep doing more like that and just do more than I did the next year.
And part of it's the challenge, right? The chase and the fun.
Yeah. If it's I gotta be challenged. I gotta have something that's gonna challenge me and that I'm gonna be excited about. And I definitely want to be able to have impact on the people on my team. Dale, after I think his second year, he was able to buy a house that we remodeled, and we didn't even know that was gonna happen like that. We actually had another offer fell through. And then we just he was just talking about it, and we just looked into it, and he had worked with me for 2 years, and he became the first person in his family to buy a house. I get goosebumps thinking about it.
I love those stories.
So I definitely want to be able to, I want to be able to do better for myself and all that. Yeah, that's great. And I also want to be able to, the people that's surrounded with Kennedy Property Development, and what I want them to be able to say the same thing too, because you look at, I feel like any leader, anybody that's doing something big, what are those people doing around them too? You know what I mean? Because if they're not doing something at a big level, well, I think that says a little something too about the leader, so.
Amen. And just being able to have the opportunity to give these types of circumstances to other people,
right.
Like it doesn't come by accident. Like, and for you to be in that position and to be thinking bigger unlocks more potential in other people and to live in their God-given abilities. I think so many people sometimes are stuck on not having a big enough vision for what's possible, right? And what you just said, it's like there's a responsibility to what you're describing here, and behind it too. It doesn't sound like the heart is the pursuit of the dollar. It's the impact it can make through that. But how do you find that balance of more and letting the things that get in your way, kind of push that anger button, that area that, because I know for me it's literally this. It's like I can take on so much, and I'm the pursuit of what I believe God's called me to do, but then just skip right over, whatever the basics are for my kids and for my wife and for my own spiritual, feeding, to go after this thing, right? And then forget what it's all about in a hurry. Yeah. How do you stay grounded? Like, what's that look like for you in creating discipline?
Yeah, I would say God, honestly, and just, Ecclesiastes, the book pretty much talks about how, the author was able to do all these things, and at the end of it, it's just like it all really meant nothing, and at the end it says the purpose of everyone is to obey God, keep his commandments, something to the lines of that, you know what I mean? So really just understanding and truly believing that like this isn't it, you know what I mean? Like,
kingdom mindset.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, just really knowing that. And so really just trying to always remind myself of that and constantly just remembering, like, if something doesn't go the way that I want to go, or, something that might seem like a really big deal, it really is not. It's really not a big deal. And really just being intentional about kind of where I'm spending my time. And I'd definitely be the first to admit, like, you ask my mom, I talk to my mom, my plumber, more than my own mother. You know what I mean? You get what I'm saying? So it's definitely like something that I definitely got to work on, but I think it's constantly just reminding myself, like, this really, is super temporary. You know?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so
in your relationship with Jesus, as it's grown, how have you kind of like owned that in the way that, I'm sure your network is pretty big to be able to do some of the things you're doing now, but like, what are some examples where you feel like the work in what you do, the standard that you have for yourself, the way you conduct yourself with integrity, points back to Jesus? I mean, you wearing the hat, man, that Jesus is my boss.
Yeah, I had to wear this hat in this podcast. I had to.
Okay, but yes, practically speaking, though, in the day-to-day, when you're out and about, you're doing deals, you're working with all kinds of different people.
Yeah.
How are you seeing that staying grounded in that way is actually bearing fruit, right? Beyond the financial gain that others have.
Yeah, I think as far as just like practically, when I wake up, I have my phone away from me. I try not to look at it for the first thing. I try to go wash my face, brush my teeth, and again, like, it's definitely a work in progress. I know I looked at it when I woke up this morning. You know what I mean?
Right.
But
same.
When I wake up, my first like hour, like, I truly just try to be with God. Like, I wash my face, brush my teeth, and then I pray. I pray. After I pray, I'll get a coffee, and then I'll sit down and I'll read 4 chapters out of the Bible. So like that, I try to start my day off like that every day.
That's pretty awesome.
And then I do the Peloton bike for 30 minutes.
I didn't know you're a Peloton rider.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
I ride the Peloton 6 days a week.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I alternate between rower and the bike.
Yeah.
So the rower.
You got the rower?
Oh man, it's like 3 times more expensive than it should be. But when you have the subscription, it's like you might as well.
Okay.
But what's the longest bike ride you've ever done?
I think only 45 minutes. That's the longest one on Peloton, just 45.
So I started with the Peloton after I spent a summer doing a 100-mile bike ride. So the Fathers for the Fatherless, have you heard of that? You're going to have to do this next year. Yeah. You're a bike rider? Oh, man, you're on my list to recruit.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. I did not know Peloton, dude.
Yeah, I'm team Peloton, man. So, yeah, as far as practically, I just try to be super intentional about spending that time with God in the morning, because even with my bike, like, I want to be able to get that workout in before I face the day, just because of, just the stuff you mentioned. There's a lot coming at, I need to get my mind right, my heart right, like, and then just throughout the day, just constantly, again, reminding myself, like,
yeah, dude.
So.
What about, so now, like, you mentioned the plumber, talking to your plumber more than you talk to your mom, and some of these relationships.
She's going to hear that I said that. She's going, Mom, you're watching this, I'm sorry.
No, you know what? At the end of the day, everyone knows moms are the best. They don't get the credit. They're the superhero behind every great man, and every great husband is a great wife and a mom. So, shout out. But you know what? But the plumber, the electrician, Dale, the folks around you. What would they say about you and your character and your integrity and like over as the time they get to know you and the way you conduct themselves compared to Joe, right? Joe who just lives for himself. Like, what's that mindset like? And how do you feel like you've seen others impacted for Jesus because of that? I think that's the piece that I'm like really curious about in your line of work.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'd hope they would say positive things. You know what I mean? I think about, some of my longest relationships. As I mentioned, my carpenter, he's been with me 7 years. He was the one that I first started with, my electrician, my plumber, same ones on the first house. You know what I mean? Not to say that I don't got other guys, because I do, but I truly try to, as a general contractor, like, my relationships truly are your
bread and butter.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's who trusts me and who I trust I could call and know that they're gonna do the job and provide a certain result. So it's all about relationships. So with that to say, I think it's super, like, relationships. I think a big one. I just finished my website. Well, I should say Kayla finished the website, but I gave her everything I wanted to put on there, whatever. But anyways, I've been thinking about core values, and I put core values on there, and it's the first one is treat people how you want to be treated. Yeah. Very basic, elementary. Right. But as any relationship, but if we're talking about like business and general contracting, like as a GC or sub, you treat each other how you want to be treated.
Yeah.
It's going to go a long way. From when you pay them on time to if there's a mistake, how you handle the mistake. Are you yelling? Hey, how do we figure this out? Like, just those certain things. Like, if you do those little things right, like, that builds relationships. And, at like work and stuff, as far as like talking about God and stuff like that, I really don't. I don't, I do pray with Dale and Kayla occasionally, but I don't really like do too much talking about
Yeah,
God. You know, I definitely try to live it out and really just like treat people how I want to be treated.
Yeah.
You know, I definitely wear the hat, you know what I mean? My painter actually gave this to me.
Oh, so
he
cool.
was wearing one. I was like, hey, where do I get one from? He's like, I can't tell you. And I just laughed, and that was really it. And then the next day he called me. He was like, hey, I got a surprise for you. I was like, what you got? He's like, meet me over here. So I met him, and he gave this hat to me. So like, so I'm not opposed to talking about God at the workplace, but I'm not out like preaching or nothing like that.
You know, and that's it. And I think sometimes it seems like the whole idea of talking to people about faith in God is this. It really is. It's a mysterious thing, because it's not like we're in the middle of these conversations that you know, a question that they will have pops in. That's just, they're going to ask you a question about their faith. But on the flip side, this is where I feel like the opposite does happen. But when you have relationships, the equity of that relationship determines your ability to lean in on that circumstance, right? And so on the opposite does happen. It's when they say, son of a crap, this happened in my life. It's when they say, this thing isn't working out the way I wanted. It's when they say, I'm so X, Y, and Z, right? And some of those things often point to, you know, let's think of it this way. A tube of toothpaste, what you would hope is inside is your toothpaste when you squeeze it. But if ketchup came out, you'd be a little surprised, right? So when you get pressed, or someone else around you gets pressed, and ketchup comes out of their toothpaste bottle, you go, that doesn't feel right? Yeah. But it's those are the moments where that relational equity that I get excited about, that I learned about my faith. And 1 Peter talks about, be prepared to give a reason for the faith that you have, or the hope that you have. And it's like those moments when I go, who is this guy to me, and how am I feeling led? You know, I'll be vulnerable first and maybe share something, and then, or if they said something personal, I'll look for the way in by relating to them with my crap and my whatever, but then meet them in the middle, and that middle is usually some sort of like grace card or positive message or scripture that comes to mind, and as a word of encouragement, right? And like. And as you said, treat others as you want to be treated. How practical is that? What I've learned about being a Jesus follower, it's being willing to be able to go there, to be able to be like, hey, you know, that really does suck. That empathy, and then somehow pointing it back. And so first, for the longest time, I was checkbox Christian, and I feel like even if you're not checkbox Christian, we're not taught on how to engage in our faith with strangers in random circumstances. And so one thing I've just boosted my confidence in my Christian business groups that I lead and have been a part of for years. It's like, oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I want to meet the guy where they are and ask a lot more probing questions and earn trust and earn, you know, grace and practice it. And then the time will come that I can just be there. And so anyway, I digress. But
no, that's good. I like that, and really just kind of try to be more intentional. It sounds like you're pretty intentional about looking for those moments.
For the moment.
Yeah.
Because, you know, when you're in the transaction world, and what you said is what stuck with me, because you're right, man. Treat others the way you want to be treated. And so many of us are focused on being treated in the way that's respectful and honorable in the transaction, right? In the transaction. But if we go one step lower or one layer deeper, love, right, is like the only weapon that cuts through. And so the scripture I like to quote is, a harsh word will stir up anger. So like if I say something, I can get you worked up, but a gentle answer will turn away wrath, right? And so the circumstances where someone's coming at you, the most disarming thing, right, is to basically get on your knees, put your arms behind your back and say, dude, I'm sorry I take off. I'm not sure what I did. I want to own this, right? And as soon as someone sees you do that, they go, oh, guard's down, right? Yeah. Like when you get flicked off because you cut someone off in the thing. Right. It doesn't work to flick them off back.
Right.
It's like, hey, I'm sorry, right? And so anyway, I have a lot of guys that come through here and do a lot of conversations. So to me, it's been like years in the making. And then I watch these other guys talk to their kids this way. And so now I'm the one with my taste of my own medicine, because I got 5 kids. So every day it's like, I'm trying to practice this. So I'm looking for it. To your point, I'm looking for it.
Yeah, that's good.
So your future, you kind of just pointed out a few things about like doing more. How does that look, as a steward? It's all God's anyway, but like your passions and desires to do this, like, yeah, you could double up your business and maybe that's great. But do you have any real goals, stakes in the ground, numbers wise, or percentages or values, or how do you measure more?
Yeah, I would say one, by the difficulty of the project. The projects that I was doing last year or the year before aren't as difficult anymore. And the more difficult ones that I get into, the more money to be made.
Yeah.
So like one that we did with you guys, 4849 15th Avenue South, was the first time I took off the roof and had a second story. So I think I left that one. I left the closing table with, the biggest one I've ever left the closing table with. But up to that date, the conversions are pretty difficult. That one was difficult in a different sense, just as far as like planning and zoning a little bit more than the other ones might have been. It was more so with the city and the red tape that they had with setbacks and stuff like that, and design standards. But I say that to say like bigger projects, and more difficult projects, I know is going to come with more money. So I would say, just kind of knowing where we're at doing this year, I would want to at least do it 50 next year.
Cool.
I want to do 50 next year, and that could, one of those could be a 10-unit apartment, whatever it might be. You know what I mean? So I probably should have a more specific, number. I probably shouldn't be able to work backwards.
Yeah.
Because I know I definitely I got to do more. I know that's in my heart super strong.
Yeah.
But there's not like a number, which I probably need to get more concrete about.
Yeah.
And to figure out, okay, if I'm going to do that, okay, do I need another project manager? Do I need another designer? Do I need another site supervisor? And really being able to work it backwards.
Proper planning proves perfect performance.
Yeah.
This idea is interesting because you already know that there's something possible that's bigger than what it is you're doing. You step into that every day, which is awesome. I think a lot of people, just keep in mind perspective here. If you're a real estate agent, or if you're in real estate, or if you're not, if you're in real estate, there's more that's possible, right, than what you see in a room. But if you're not, you look here and it's hard to have vision beyond the wall that you see, right? So, but you are already doing that in your business, right? So you have this kind of vision for your business. What people don't often do to the next step. So now you're at that step of you've been able to put on the goggles and see what's possible. The next step is simply formalizing that, because now with that level of plan and that detail, you can spend some of that version of Dale investment into some of these other things to re-up and buy your time back again. Yeah, and then you're like, you know what? At a minimum, this might just be the year that I reduce a little stress and X, Y, and Z. And I think, because what'll happen is without some of that recalibration, you go off to the rocket race, you go off ready to go, and you find yourself tripping over the things that you didn't plan for or weren't prepared for, right? And I say this now because I feel like I'm in the space where my head's up with my head, chicken with my head cut off. But I came out of a space where I was like, I'm bored. And I'm not bored ever. And it was just because I was focused on one thing as opposed to feeling. And the difference is, I'm both I love. I was not bored. It was more effective time spent doing something more specific and being better at it than opposed to getting a few things going. And I can live in both. But the optimal is when I found that plan. Like, so what you're talking about in the morning, the fruit of that hour. Some people, start doing that. Spend an hour with the Lord in the morning in your Bible and reading, like that is game changer. But that next level for you is, what about that hour in a week or 2 hours in a week? I'm sure you do books, right? These are some things you're already doing, right? But that business plan is like, what are the things that are broken? So one thing I love is just the breakthrough stories that you've probably already gone through, you didn't know before. What are some of the biggest challenges that you got through, and knowing that you've had to be patient and calm and practice your Jesus juice, stuff, engineers, civil engineers, projects, cities, all these different things.
Yeah,
Curveballs.
Still working on them. I would say dealing with inspectors.
Yeah.
Dealing with inspectors. There's some I don't go to inspections anymore. Really, and it depends what it is, but for the most part, Dale's going to them. But if it's a big project or Dale's spending more time at a couple other one week, and I know that I should probably show the attention to that one, and I'll go to that one. But there's inspectors that I've got into it with, and for reasons that I won't really get into on this podcast, but just where it's like I gotta take a step back and really control my anger and really, okay, how would Jesus want me to respond?
Yeah, man.
You know what I mean? So,
right.
Talking about God and Jesus right now, if there's some inspectors, if they were to watch it, they'd be like, what? That's the same Rashad? They would probably have a reaction like that, you know what I mean? Based off some of our
interactions.
Interactions, you know what I mean? So really, I would just say, just trying to do better in situations like that, you know? Yeah.
What do you think it is when it's particularly that sort of individual? It's most likely a disagreement, right, on what it is they see, and they want you to redo, and you know how much time and money it's going to take, and so let's break that down, because this is it. That is so true, man. Like, that's life, and the reasons we don't talk about three things when we hang out with our family, we don't talk about religion, politics, or money. Because everyone has a disagreement, and we don't know how to work through disagreement. Yeah. So, but fundamentally, what are the types of things that they're bringing that would be like a confrontation?
Yeah. I'll use an example where we did a property in East St. Paul. It was a vacant building. They give you so they break it into 4 sections: HVAC, electrical, building, and plumbing.
Okay.
The building is like the GC part, so that's it's the GC part, and they give you a code compliance report, and you gotta, and pretty much a lot of people go and like put band-aids on a lot of these items. We do everything. If it's saying something about the kitchen, we're taking out the kitchen.
We're gonna fix the problem.
Yeah, we're not putting band-aid on it. But anyways, there's a particular incident where one inspector, there used to be a garage door on the door, but it was broken. So we just took it off, and I wasn't gonna put a garage door on it. And he said I had to put one back on because that was the state that it was in previously. He just threw this out of thin air. This is not a thing. And so that was actually at that inspection. I wasn't there. This is an inspector that I've learned I'm not going to his inspections anymore. Oh. So what I did to handle that, though, the head inspector sent him an email. And ultimately, I ended up being right, which is neither here nor there, because a lot of that confrontation is about ego. You know what I mean? So I don't necessarily want to involve ego in it, but the facts of the matter is that wasn't true. There was nothing in that said I had to do that. But I just used the case, hey, look, if there's a garbage disposal in the kitchen, I'm going to turn this into a rental. I don't want a garbage disposal because it's going to break. I shouldn't have to put a garbage disposal in there. And that's what I used. And ultimately, they were like, yeah, you're right, and let it go. But there's been bigger things like that that I've had to do. And just the biggest thing wasn't the garage door opener. I could spend $150 and put that on there. Right. It was, I don't want to set the precedent that you're going to tell me to do things that aren't true.
I agree with. What about the areas where there maybe is something that is them enforcing? Yeah. And maybe the agreement is not aligned. Yeah. But you may end up having to do it and fix it because it goes in their favor of what they need done.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, then we do it.
Of course.
Yeah, we do it. We get it done.
But where's that part of like the butting of the heads happened where it feels like
the heads get butted when he's like, oh, because this is what happened. He won't give us our certificate of occupancy until that was done. So then that's when I'll become intense,
because what that'll impact. The dollar.
And it's definitely ego involved. You know what I mean? Yeah, so I'll be the first to say, like, I got to slow down, put my ego to the side. You know what I mean? Like, definitely.
And part of that's true. It's like, yeah, I guess that's a piece I missed. And then saying when you come to it though, and is it more in the moment that knowing, like, are you kidding me? You're gonna make me do this to do this? Yeah, it's in the moment. It's in the moment. That I use that one as an example. I wasn't there, but the one prior to that, when I was there, which was when I decided I'm not gonna be there anymore. It was right there. It was right there, right away. And did you have to? Were you able to regroup? And did you leave the circumstance better, or did you resolve it, or did it linger?
Yeah, it lingered. It lingered. Yeah, to be honest. I hope I'm answering your question.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm fascinated by this.
No, so I think what happened was I ended up telling him he had to leave my house. He had to leave the property because I was getting very upset. I was yelling.
Have you guys made up?
So he's had other inspections, and we've been able to kind of work through it, certain things, but I haven't been to any. I did end up apologizing.
You did?
Yeah, I did end up apologizing. I think it was just even in the email, it wasn't in person, about how that situation got handled. Definitely was like, hey, I should have handled this way better, not overreacted, all that stuff.
Good for you.
So I did apologize.
Good for you.
But I haven't been on inspection with him since.
Right. It's one thing to wound, fix the problem, right? It's another thing to stay in engagement on other projects. You can remove yourself.
Yes, exactly.
That's a choice.
Yeah, so I just remove myself, man.
Oh, that's good, man.
Yeah.
Well, it's so fun, and when I get a chance to just sit down and hear you and some of the success you've had, it's really cool. It's motivating because I feel like, even the very short time, you've taken what you've known and you've been kind of working on, and getting a little more dialed in, getting focused, and unlocking some real potential. What to kind of finish this off here, like what was it though that was like explosive, it's time to go? Like how did you go from just a couple, and then this reality that I bought this one thing and now it's time to go. I'm going to unlock all of this and it's going to go, and I'm going to make a real business out of this. What can you say to encourage others because it's right there? Sometimes it's like this idea and you've been in it a little bit, it's been on the side, but you're not quite sure if you should go all in, right?
Yeah.
When it comes together to bet on yourself, what did it take you?
Man, that's a really good question. I think it's a tough question because I would say that, like, for me, God has blessed, and I'm not going to say that other people don't have, but I'm very optimistic. I'm very I have faith that things are going to go.
Yeah.
They're gonna work out. You know what I mean? Where I know
to a fault sometimes.
Exactly. Yeah. Where I know other people where just the way they think is opposite. Like they'll find the problem in everything and not move forward. So, like for me, my advice to someone who's like that, it might be hard for me to give that type of person. I don't know what the answer is. You know what I mean? I say, well, you should have more faith, a little bit more optimistic, but that might not be. So for me, I think I'm a little spoiled in that aspect where I just have that where I have faith that things are going to work.
Brother.
Yeah, you know what I mean? I have faith that things are going to work out. I'm going to figure it out. We're going to make it happen. Where I feel like that might not be the norm. You know what I mean? So I would say if that's not the way you look at things or approach things, I think it would be just maybe understanding that about yourself then and understanding that's how you think.
Yeah.
And trying to be, I don't want to say fight it or nothing, but just understand your thought process and also understand that things are going to go wrong, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But have, trust, faith in yourself that you're going to figure it out. But again, that's kind of hard. Like, how could I have faith in myself that I'm going to figure it out?
Well, but it's true. It's limiting beliefs. We have limiting beliefs about what we think is possible and about the outcomes and what it is. And I feel like I was listening to something, I don't even know what the heck it was recently, but if we just stopped, it was actually that's weird. It was one of my own podcasts. It was a bunch of shorts. I was listening and taking notes. And someone else said it, but going back and thinking about the last number of years and the history of life, look how many times he's come through and allowed you to come through.
Right.
And we know it's happened and it's happened and it's happened. And you do enough, you can kind of predict that you can find the formula and push it forward. And I think some people, there's this sense of maybe it's not being able to recognize their blessings that they have had and what they have unlocked and the goodness and the faithfulness and his provision that we've always had. And then look forward going, what if I took more bets because what I've done has worked out? And in fact, if you can't point, I can point to some screw ups. I don't know about you, because what comes with the opportunity and the success has the wounds, the scars. If you don't have any scars or very few of them, you're not taking enough at bats, right?
Yeah.
Because I know guys that have had the first flips, not make money and never do it again.
Yeah.
You got to do the second.
Yeah.
You got to do the third. Unless you can find yourself fundamentally into a place where there's a big no and it's, skill, ability? Do you have the capacity even or time? And do you even understand it, right? And sometimes we're just in over our skis, but that I would piggyback on what you're saying, and it's looking at the future going, be more bold, be more courageous, right?
That's a good answer to that, because that is what it is then, is just being more bold and I guess pushing through that. Because I was thinking like fighting it, but maybe that is what it is. I said I don't want to say fight it, but maybe that is what it is. Maybe fight those negative beliefs or those limiting beliefs.
Those are the ones you actually have to go through to get to the other side.
Yeah, so maybe it is you just got to deal with those, and go.
So it's almost like this. I could point out the 2 or 3 or 4 painful things that once you go through, one being working out, and this one. The pain is part of the gain. Right. The gain is the celebration, but the pain is actually where the work happens. So if it doesn't feel like you're putting in work, you're not working. You're not growing, are you? No, right? Yeah. And then the other one I look at is when I started counseling. It's like, how freaking annoying would this be to go sit and talk about my problems with a guy? Then you got to do it. Then you have to do it. How painful would it be to sit down and have counseling with my mom? It was painful, but I had to do it, right? And it was going through the storm. And on the other side of it, it's like, oh, that was not bad. My limiting beliefs on this subject are gone. They're destroyed. And then one other one is looking in the mirror on the financials. Like I've done good enough, but I need to be more accountable to what I'm spending and hold my wife that way too. And so there's this particular individual I know is a finance guy, and I want to bring him on, but it's an area that I don't want to look in the mirror on because I'm gonna have to make some changes. But that's exactly where I need to be, right? I had a guy tell me the reason he wasn't going to join the advisory group because of time, and that's a hard one for me because we have the same. But the thing that pushed him from it is the thing that he needed to do. He needed to go through it, and time was the investment of the future version of himself that needed the time. And so, you're robbing from today for the version of you tomorrow that actually has the choice to spend your time more wisely. And it's like, oh, yeah, that sucks, but he's right. And so many people are right. So you need wise counsel. Right? Yeah. Oh, man. And so even by talking to you, I'm learning about real estate. And as I'm thinking about just calling the right guys, I hear you're starting to think about building a real estate community where guys can kind of get some of your. This is made. I'm trying to wink at you, trying to get your legacy knowledge and be able to pour into these guys and show them the playbook of Rashad Kennedy. But how can people find you? And are you willing? Or where's your stage of helping others in this point of the game when it comes to real estate?
Yeah, absolutely. So my only social media right now up to this point is LinkedIn. But we do like Flipper Fridays where I do like a progress. Maybe I do a bag flip. I probably post.
You can do a backflip?
Yeah, I can do a bag
You're a
flip
machine.
a little bit, So I'm trying to post a few times a week on there. Try to stay active on there. Like I said, it's my only social media, so I try to stay active on there. And we're going to start doing more with that too,
Yeah,
so
that's right.
Continue to do more, and really just from a space of really just want to be able to add value to people, knowing what it's like to not know anything about construction, also knowing how important construction and real estate or the construction piece of real estate is. I mean, real estate is construction, you know what I mean? And just knowing that there's not as much resources about the construction side of things as there is about financing or how to find a deal or how to get the money. So really trying to break that down a little bit more for people. So
that's great. I mean, your pants are blue, your hat's blue, your collar's not blue.
Yeah.
But hey, there's money in it. There's money in it. It's good stuff. Well, learning from the best, and we've been honored to have you as a client. I'm excited to get to know you as a friend and fellow believer. But thanks so much for being on the show.
Absolutely.
It's been a blast. This has been another episode of Successfully Unsuccessful podcast. Hey, we'll see you next time. Take care. Bye.